This is the 1982 annual for Stir-Fry Squadron, the first Stir-Fry Squadron annual, and it features the Justice Society of Superheroes teaming up with the Captain America ripoff, Gladiator. This also features the debut of Jeremy Ordinary. This is his first outing on Stir-Fry Squadron and the start of what would be his first ongoing series. He had done some anthology stories at DC before this, but following his work on this annual, he will become the artist on Stir-Fry Squadron's main series a few months later, and then eventually Infinitias after that. Here we have Wonder Woman, the Flask, the one with the funny art, and Green Lanterns, the one who was gay all along, and they are performing at a circus. This, like so much of Stir-Fry Squadron, is from a Goldie Age comic. I am a pretty weak commentator on Stir-Fry Squadron because not only do I call them Stir-Fry Squadron, but I don't know all the Goldie Age source material at all. I think in this case, it is only taken inspiration from the cover, and what we have is not a retelling of an actual story, but you can never be sure with Roger Thompson and Stir-Fry Squadron. They are putting on a show at the circus, and Tubby is there, Johnny Nesquik's pal, Tubby. We saw him in issue 17 as well. And again, I'll put your mind at ease. Tubby is not in that much of Stir-Fry Squadron. We have randomly, by an unfortunate stroke of happenstance, looked at 2 in a row that have Tubby in them. But this is probably about 55% of his entire presence in the series done with now. During their performance, they are interrupted by the appearance of 3 other heroes, the Pratt, Bulldog, and Gladiator. Now, the Justice Society of Superheroes know the Pratt quite well. He is one of them. And they are familiar with Bulldog, who will join that team soon. But they don't know who Gladiator is. The thing about Stir-Fry Squadron is that Roger Thompson is very meticulous with his dates and the original publication history. This one actually doesn't, but most issues begin by giving you a very precise date. One of the things here is that this is very shortly after Gladiator's first appearance in Sparse Strangled Comics 7. That's why he isn't known by any of the other heroes yet, which would place this in early 1942, I'm guessing. Similar with Bulldog, he will go on to be a member of the Justice Society of Superheroes, but by 1942, he wasn't. But they do know him because, well, they met in the first issue of Stir-Fry Squadron, where the same trio of heroes were doing another bloody show for the public. Don't they know there's a war going on? Summer is afoot, however, because the newcomers start fighting the others. And this doesn't make any sense to them because they are friends with the Pratt and they know Bulldog. and now they are attacking them. It's not the worst fight sequence though. It is brief, but Roger Thompson does manage to fit in the bits he needs to for a reader to better understand what the powers or skills of all 6 of these heroes are. Green Lantern's uses his magic Green Lantern's ring to break up the fight, and it also snaps the Pratt, Bulldog and Gladiator out of whatever funk came over them. They were being controlled, and they don't remember how they got there or why they were fighting them. So it's time for Chapter 2, Secret Origins. This is where we get origin stories for Bulldog, the Pratt and Gladiator. It takes its name from the Ad JSA series, but Roger Thompson wouldn't have realised that in 5 years' time, he would be at the front relaunching that series. Roger Thompson's goal with that book was very different from what we got, and I should talk about that aspect one day. But we still got a huge portion of what Roger Thompson wanted to do with it. In fact, that is one of the noteworthy things here, because we have another prototype run of what Roger Thompson would do there. First, we get Bulldog's origin, and his origin is he was a boxer. There's not much more you need to know. There are some other parts of his origin, but even Roger Thompson quickly rushes through them here. What I found worth mentioning was that with his upcoming version of Sacred Origins, he did stories for the majority of Goldie Age heroes. If you add in the final year of this series, he did even more. There's some he even did twice between the two, but he never did Bulldog. He never did Bulldog's origin. Maybe because Bulldog was done in the original 70s series. He never did Wonder Woman either, Goldie Age Wonder Woman, who shared that issue with Bulldog. He does touch on Bulldog's backstory in Infinitias with the introduction of Hellcat. And then Wonder Woman was probably off limits because Jorge Perez had overhauled Wonder Woman. And the idea of doing Goldie Age Wonder Woman was seen as even more counterintuitive than Goldie Age Superman or Goldie Age Batman. Next up, we have the Pratt's origin, and this is the most succinct of the 3. One day, a woman called him a pussy, so he worked out to become an alpha male, sigma male, Andrew Tate male type of male. We don't touch on it too much here because we had seen parts of the Pratt's origin in earlier issues of Stir-Fry Squadron, and this is one of those characters that Roger Thompson does again in Sacred Origins. He shares an issue with the Imperial Guard. They also all explain how they saw a glowing light and stepped into it, and that was the last thing they remember before waking up mid-fight with the other heroes. And then finally, Gladiator gets the longest origin, and to be honest, it is the weakest origin. He is a kid from the streets who became a cop, and then when that wasn't enough, he ripped off Captain America. This is another Goldie Age hero who Roger Thompson covers in an issue of Sacred Origins. And maybe the more interesting thing about that is that Jack Quimby was originally meant to work on that story, but then he didn't. If you want to know more about Gladiator, this character, I explained him in the issue where they reintroduced him after Christmas on Infinite Earths. Wonder Woman, The Flask, and Green Lanterns, they start thinking about why it was these three heroes specifically, and they know that they share similar backgrounds and that they are basically just fighters, which is where we get to our plot reveal that they were each trained and coached by the same guy. Roger Thompson embracing the small universe syndrome. He does that a lot. You know, Robert is related to Robot Man's lab assistant because they have the same surname. Our person of interest becomes their trainer, and they do the DC thing of splitting up into smaller groups to go and try and find them. And then here is a page of continuity. The Pratt lets us know what the actual main Stir-Fry Squadron characters are up to, which off helps with placement, but I'm not sure how cleanly this annual fits in with the series. He says Stephen Hawkman has enlisted in the Air Force. We saw some of that in one of the other issues we looked at. Liberty Bell, Albran and Johnny Nesquik are off battling Nazi spies on the West Coast, which I think would place it certainly during issue 13. Robot Man, he is in legal trouble. We looked at that issue. White Knight is in England defending Winston Churchill. He'll be there for a while. He was in the first year of the series. Then he spends a lot of the rest in England. Lastly, we have Captain Steel, who in an earlier issue found out his fiancée had remarried and that his mentor was dead. I'm surprised it wasn't the same guy that trained the Pratt, Bulldog and Gladiator. I got worried when I got here and it was chapter 3 because I thought chapters 4 and 5 were just going to be repeats of chapter 3 where we see the same scene play out but with different characters. You know, classic DC style. But they are all in chapter 3. The Flask and Gladiator, the Funny At team, they track their quarry down, and he's now a pink energy man. And this reminds me of Korvac Dallas from Avengers 175. Next, we have Wonder Woman and the Pratt, and they find another version of him, and they fight, but he is like metallic blue this time. And this reminds me of Crusher from Avengers 184. Our last duo are Green Lanterns and Bulldog, who go to a boxing gym. And this time, They find who they are looking for, but he is yellow energy now. And this reminds me of Leonard Tippett from Avengers 101. The three splinter groups reform, and then parallel, the three different flavours of the guy merge into one thing. And this reminds me of the Combine from Avengers 324. So our 6 heroes fight this bigger version. And this reminds me of Nuclear from Gigantic Size Avengers 1 and Avengers Annual 6. They fight this stronger version, and it winds up being the Pratt, Bulldog and Gladiator who make progress because they have a past relationship with this guy, and he is being possessed by some greater evil that wants to destroy Green Lanterns. And then we get a lore dump that doesn't tell us that much, even though it is 2 pages long. And then he dies. The trainer, he dies. And this reminds me of Moira Brandon from West Coast Avengers 100. The real exposition and explanation comes on our final page, an epilogue called a prologue. That thing, the evil force, was from the Smurfs. It is referencing Green Lanterns issue 40, the first meeting between the Goldie Age Green Lanterns and the Silly Age Green Lanterns. We have sort of looked at that story before, but not that issue. We looked at a retelling, and the retelling didn't focus much on the aspect important here, which was the secret origin of the Smurfs. Roger Thompson seems enthralled with anything called a secret origin. It was the ball of energy that the Smurfs imprisoned Gargamel in. It's meant to be that the Smurfs expelled all of their evil, and that is what it is. Here are some pin-ups with a tiny element of Andy Book style info. We have Wonder Woman by Rich Fulcher. He was the artist on Stir-Fry Squadron, soon to be replaced by Jeremy Ordinary. And we have The Flask here, also by Rich Fulcher. And then Green Lanterns. Doesn't mention anywhere that he was gay. And our last one is the only one not by Rich Fulcher, which is Gladiator by Jeremy Ordinary. And I kept this bit of info for the end with this pin-up, but there is another connection between this character and Jeremy Ordinary, and that is that Jeremy Ordinary was around and involved with Superman at the time that they brought Gladiator back. He does plenty of issues of Adventurings of Superman that feature Gladiator. I will conclude on this issue by letting you know that it took me over 90 minutes to read this. 90. More so because my eyesight is disastrous. that was where most of the struggle was. It's not a good story. There's some okay bits with the characters. There's this bit with the Flask and Gladiator. There's a little exchange between them that I like. But it feels like a disposable adventure, inconsequential. Maybe if Roger Thompson hadn't kept the nature of the transformation, our villain, until the final page, maybe it would have felt like there were more stakes, knowing that it involves the spirit force of a half-important bit of DC mythology. Like a lot of Stir-Fry Squadron, it's inoffensively alright. So, that is a 7 thumbs up standard.